we go from here as Christians and as people who believe in family values and the Constitution. So we're going to talk about that. But if you want to send us an email, you can do so at comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net. The situation with the Supreme Court was very important in this presidential election. And the reason is we have, as it currently stands today, folks, there are 4 conservatives. Basically, John Roberts, I know that he went against the conservatives on Obamacare, but basically he's a conservative. He's the Chief Justice. Then you have 4 liberals, and you have 1 moderate or swing voter, and that's Anthony Kennedy. That's been the makeup of the Supreme Court for 4-4-1. That's why Anthony Kennedy's called the decider, because he usually, on important issues, he decides which way the court will go. So 4-4-1. So it's a very tenuous balance on the Supreme Court for those of us who believe in constitutionalism, as opposed to the evolving Constitution, living, breathing document, ACLU type view that President Obama holds and the 4 liberals on the court hold. So what I'm asking you to do every day of your life, people, is vote for these men that they don't die.
Pray for them. Pray for them, you mean?
Yes.
Pray.
Oh, don't vote for them. You can't vote for them, but you pray that they don't die.
Yeah.
Okay?
Or get sick.
Or get sick. Because I'm going to tell you, if President Obama is allowed to, I say allowed, he is allowed, the Constitution gives him authority. If he gets to promote a liberal to replace one of these conservatives on the Supreme Court, it's going to do severe damage.
Or even replace Anthony Kennedy, who you never know.
Any of those 5,
yeah,
the 4 conservatives and the moderate. I dare say, because see, liberals, when they get on the Supreme Court, they walk in lockstep with one another. They don't budge. They don't mature, in quotes, as
or evolve
as quote conservatives do. You put a conservative on the Supreme Court, they may end up being a moderate or a liberal by the time they're through. You put a liberal on the Supreme Court, only thing they're going to do is go further to the left. Right. They're not going to go conservative. So that's a truism with respect to the Supreme Court. So what I'm saying is, we've got Supreme Court justices. I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a liberal, and she's in her 70s.
She's actually 80s, I think now.
She's probably going to retire soon. You got to think.
But you'd be getting a liberal for a liberal.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so bad. Except that you'd be getting a liberal for a liberal minus 40 years of age.
Right.
But now, Clarence Thomas, I guess he's got to be in his 60s, upper 60s.
I think
Anthony
so.
Scalia is in his 70s.
Yeah, these guys are up there in age.
Scalia and Clarence Thomas and Kennedy, those are the 3. The other 2, Alito and Roberts, were Bush appointees.
Right.
And they're relatively young.
Yeah.
So I don't think you have to worry about them. But those 3 other guys, Kennedy, Thomas, and Scalia, we need to pray for them and hope that they're taking their vitamins. Because we need them to hang around is what I'm saying. But, as I said earlier, if you take a pessimistic view that we're not going to have another Republican presidential nominee in the foreseeable future, inevitably, then you're going to get a court that's appointed by a Democrat president.
What's interesting, though, in talking about, I'm not trying to shade away from the Supreme Court issue because it's hugely important, but one of the commentators, it might have been George Will, I heard him say the biggest winner of the night, he said, was Marco Rubio, because he said it's become apparent, just talking about the possibility of another Republican president in our lifetime, it's become obvious that Republicans have to chip away at the Hispanic vote, and Marco Rubio is a rising star. So I think someone like that could become president in 2016 because the Republicans have a fairly deep bench.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, and this is not a I'm not trying to be a smarty with this question here. But think about the idea in America of having to name your ethnicity as part of a reason why people would vote for you. Isn't that what we're supposed to be moving against? In other words, wasn't the ideal of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that you don't even consider color? You consider content of character? And yet here we are, even Republicans who say that they would subscribe to something like that, say, well, we've got to appeal to the Hispanic vote. In other words, people are going to vote for somebody that looks like them for no other reason, even if that's just a factor. That's a stupid factor, you would think, to people who say we're colorblind or we want to be colorblind. You see my point on that?
I understand. I think it's just not true that that's the way we are. So the problem, because one of the things in some of the commentary about explaining what happened, I was stunned as I began to hear them talk about in exit polling last night that a lot of people were impressed with President Obama because they saw him walking on the beach following Hurricane Sandy with Chris Christie, looking presidential and looking like he cared. President Obama, for those who said it's important for me, for people who said it's important for me that the president understand me and be likable, he won 82% of those people. President Obama did. So what I'm saying is, people respond to image. They respond. I remember George Bush being elected in 2000 over Al Gore for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons was people were asked, which one would you prefer to sit down and have a beer with? And people voted for George Bush on that basis, not wooden Al Gore. He doesn't seem relatable. I know somebody who said, I voted for George Bush because he's cute. So what I'm saying is people, they respond to image, they respond to perception, and they respond, as you said, to people who they think are like them. And one of the easiest ways to relate to somebody is on the basis of race or ethnicity. I remember when Rudy Giuliani was running for president, I thought, hey, an Italian, I wouldn't vote for Rudy Giuliani because of his policies, but I thought, an Italian president, that'd be pretty cool. I think that's a normal first impulse for people. So, President Obama won overwhelmingly the black vote, 96% or so. And a large part of that, I'm sure, is because, well, he's black. He's like me. He will understand me. And that's what a lot of people seem to be looking for.
I'm not trying to Dr. Phil you here, Ed, but what does understand me in that person's mind do you think that means?
I think part of the problem, and I don't want to over-spiritualize this, part of the problem is that America really has shifted. Americans are no longer self-reliant. They certainly, to a large extent, don't rely on God. They rely on the government. And if you're relying on the government to fill in gaps and to be there for you if things go bad, you want someone representing the government who's going to understand you. I think this is a symptom of the fact that our nation is moving away from God, and they don't trust God to be that person. They trust the government, and you want the face of the government to be someone like you because you can trust you. Who's going to be representing the government? And that's why these Bain Capital ads were so damaging, I think, in the long run to Mitt Romney, is they really did portray him. For some percentage of people, this election was close enough that it mattered, some percentage of people who saw Mitt Romney as a corporate raider and someone who was not going to look out for them, couldn't understand them because they're rich, they went for the guy that looked presidential, looked like a friendly face walking on the beach where all those people, were suffering from the remnants of Hurricane Sandy. Mm-hmm. I think this is a symptom of our departure from God. Government saves me, and I want the guy representing the government to understand me. Bill Clinton, yeah. I feel your pain. You remember that?
Yeah.
I feel your pain. That's
so
my best Bill Clinton.
We may laugh at that, but that works.
I think it works. I think we've become a nation who listens to Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
you know,
Oprah.
and whoever, and says, I want somebody in there. There's a lot of pain out there. There's a lot of suffering, a lot of anguish, a lot of fear. People don't know where to turn. They're not turning to God. So what's the thing they turn to? I think it's the guy leading the government.
Yeah. You're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio